We began this morning with the governor's seat. With the numbers tabulated, Susana Martinez will remain at her post as governor for New Mexico for the next 4 years.
That's right. She beat out Gary King with a clear victory in last night's race. Let's take a look at the numbers right here. There you see Susana Martinez 57%, Gary King just 43%.
I've learned that being governor means you don't just represent some of the people. You represent all of the people. We've got a lot of work to do, but we've made important progress. And I hope that tonight's results speak for themselves. Promises made and promises kept.
Susana Martinez is the first Hispanic woman governor to win a second term. She led the polls throughout the night, really all leading up to the race, easily beating her opponent Gary King, even in a very heavily Democratic state. Now the governor vows to continue her progress and listen to the people. In her acceptance speech, Ms. Martinez talked about keeping up her work with education and preparing teenagers for when they graduate. And Gary King knew going into the governor's race that it was going to be a battle. Even though he was the attorney general and his dad was governor for 3 terms, King never really gained any momentum in the polls. He also could not compete against Governor Martinez's financial backing. Get this, from April to November, King spent more than $1.7 million. But in that same time period, the governor spent $7.9 million. In a very brief concession speech last night at the Democratic headquarters at the Doubletree, Mr. King thanked his supporters and highlighted areas here in New Mexico he says still need work.
I think that there are a lot of important issues in New Mexico, and we raise those issues. I think that there's a lot that still needs to be done with regard to our economy. I think there's a lot that needs to be done with regard to our schools. I think that there's a lot that needs to be done with regard to our children in New Mexico.
After his speech, Gary King left the hotel and did not talk with reporters.
Now, Governor Martinez beat her opponent Gary King by a good-sized margin. Political experts say her record-setting win shows a second-term governor can appeal to voters on both sides of the aisle in this very blue state. So what does the governor's victory mean for her future? News 13's Catherine Rizzone is in the Newsplex with that.
That's right, Crystal. Before her win last night, no governor had ever won with more than 55%. Even before the election, though, there was talk of putting Martinez on a different ballot. Now there's even more speculation that Martinez's name could help garner votes in the 2016 election.
There's a lot of debate. Does this, catapult her to the vice presidential status? There's some possibility there. The Republican Party nationally needs the Latino votes.
Now that was political expert Gabe Sanchez. Before last night, Martinez has said she's not interested in national political office, saying she would serve out her 4-year term as governor if re-elected. But that's not to say the GOP won't try. Political experts say Martinez would draw votes from women and Hispanics if she landed the spot as VP candidate in 2016, giving the GOP a much better shot than if there were 2 white men on the ballot. Plus, experts say she's already proven her ability to garner dollars from a national GOP fundraising base. Martinez held the lead throughout the entire campaign, despite Democrats' 3-2 advantage in voter registration in the largely Democratic state. Now, experts say she also played her cards right when it came to divisive issues, like avoiding her stance on late-term abortions. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that information, Catherine. Now, Martinez has already been rubbing elbows with big-name Republicans. Chris Christie and former presidential hopeful Mitt Romney both appeared alongside Martinez on the campaign trail.
It's 5:05 now. As for New Mexico's U.S. Senate seat, it really did look like a close race in the beginning between the incumbent, Tom Udall, and his challenger, Alan Way. But despite that, Udall is waking up a winner this morning. You can see here he will be in Washington for at least another 6 years, 55-45 the final numbers. And it was no doubt one of the most heated races this election year here in New Mexico. It even included a nasty round of ads, but in the end, you can see here that Udall came out on top pretty early.
I think what resonated with people is the idea that I was doing a good job when it comes to all of the things that are New Mexico, our bases, our labs, our land, all of the things we love and care about. And people said, well, let's return him. And so I feel good about that. I really do.
Now, later that night, after all the votes had been counted, Alan Way finally threw in the towel and conceded to Senator Udall.
I'm going to be working as long as the good Lord gives me the health to work. I'm going to be working, and so I'm going to be doing something, and I'm going to find another way to serve somewhere, someplace in the future.
Now, despite being overspent and outraced, early polls showed Mr. Wei was a voter favorite, closing the gap pretty early in the election.
And another race that we've been keeping our eye on all morning is the race for Secretary of State. Here are the numbers right now. Looks like Republicans Secretary of State Diana Duran will keep her job amid a strong challenge from Democrat Maggie Toulouse-Oliver. The numbers ended with 52% going to Duran, 48% going to Toulouse-Oliver. Toulouse-Oliver has not conceded at this time because this race is very close. We will hope to have that later on this morning. Duran pushed for voter ID measures to prevent what she says is regular voter fraud in New Mexico, but Oliver says the incumbent has wasted too much time on voter ID efforts at the expense of bigger picture endeavors in the office. And let's take a look at the races for U.S. Congress. In District 1, covering Bernalillo and Torrance counties, incumbent Democrat Michelle Lujan Grisham easily beat challenger Michael Freeze 59 to 41%. In District 2, much of southern New Mexico, Republican Steve Pierce came out on top early, beating Democrat Rocky Lada, that's 64 to 36%. And in District 3, covering northern New Mexico, current Congressman Ben Ray Lujan will serve another term. It will be his third. He beat Jeff Byrd 61 to 39%.
Well, for the very first time since the 1950s, it looks like Republicans will have control of the State House here in New Mexico. There are quite a few hot races that have pretty much all gone to the GOP, and more that have results still coming in. Going into this election, Democrats had a 37 to 33 advantage in the State House, but here's how the numbers look this morning. It's basically been flip-flopped. The GOP has 37 seats, the Democrats have 33. We'll have more on what happened, how this happened, and what it means coming up in about a half hour. And nationally, Republicans will soon have control of the U.S. House and Senate. The GOP picked up more than 6 seats in the Senate and has the majority there for the first time in 8 years. Kentucky's Mitch McConnell easily beat his opponent. It is now set to become the Senate Majority Leader. Republicans picked up seats in North Carolina, Colorado, Iowa, and other states. Now Democrats say the message from voters is clear and they are promising a cooperative Congress.
I will work with anyone in the Senate, Democrat, Republican, Independent, to get things done.
Republicans also expanded their majority in the U.S. House and won a number of governor's races. By the way, this just in, President Obama says he will have a news conference later today to talk about Republicans taking over control of the U.S. Senate. Crystal?
And we will continue our coverage of the results from last night's election throughout the day here on the News 13 and 2 Casa Fox. We'll also have updates on our website at krqe.com.